You have the right to remain silent,
but we'd prefer if you didn't.
Spinning the law, spinning the law.
This is Malzberg's
Spinning the law,
Spinning the Law,
spinning the law, spinning the law.
with attorney Kendell Coffey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show here on the Steve Malzberg Show. And we're waiting for Kendell Coffey to join us to go spinning the law. And the first case we're going to discuss is what's taking place down in Florida. And I got to tell you, I have a problem with this. And we welcome in Kendell Coffey. Hey, sir, how are you?
Doing great. How are you?
Good, good, good. Thanks for coming on, and as always, appreciate it. All right, so this is in your neck of the woods, or at least in the state that you're in, down in it's Polk County, Florida, and there's a sheriff down there investigating the suicide of a girl allegedly prompted by online bullying. And not only is the two girls, ages 12 and 14, identified by the police as the main culprits in the bullying that they say led to the 12-year-old Rebecca Sedgwick's suicide, but now the sheriff is looking at the parents of these girls to possibly hold them responsible, charging the parents with some kind of crime. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm a parent of a 14-year-old. We're in such uncharted territory. I just don't. I don't see how the parent could be held responsible. Would the parent be held responsible if the bullying wasn't on the internet? I mean, I don't understand this.
Well, I mean, the law I think is pretty clear. You're responsible if you're, let's call it neglect. Let's just say you're. I'm sure I know you're a great parent, but let's say you're not. You're looking the other way. You spend all day listening to, I don't know, the radio, which is probably a good thing to do anyway, but you're not paying any attention to your kids. If your kids themselves, your own kids, to whom you have, the deepest, most profound duties possible, suffer some kind of abuse or neglect, then you could be criminally responsible for that. But that duty and that criminal exposure is really owed by the parents to their own kids. You're not legally responsible because I guess that the sheriff's theory might be, as a parent, you weren't paying enough attention to your kids to keep them from going out and doing something to somebody else, unless there's active encouragement by the parents of something such as, an extreme form of bullying. There's no crime. I mean, the sheriff may not think they're great parents, but that doesn't mean that they're criminals.
Right. So saying you're going to want to charge them because they're in quote unquote total denial. I mean, is that a crime? Total denial? I mean, what does he think he's going to charge them with?
Boy, could you ever pack the prisons. I don't know if we're going to talk about prison crowding in California.
Yes.
Ever pack the prisons. I don't know if we're going to talk about prison crowding in California.
Yes.
What are they going to do? No, there's no crime of denial. I mean, certainly it makes somebody whose conduct is controversial less appetizing, and sometimes the authorities are distressed by it if somebody doesn't acknowledge, and sometimes the authorities are distressed by it if somebody doesn't acknowledge. The authorities always want to see that in terms of a suspect or a target, but it's not a crime for parents to say my kid didn't do anything wrong, or the parents to say I didn't do anything wrong, and that's I think really sending the wrong message, because those are not the kind of things that law enforcement is or should be focusing on.
And one more thing on this bullying thing. I mean, I guess there are laws now that differentiate this kind of cyberbullying from regular bullying, or even regular bullying is considered now a crime, punishable by criminal prosecution of 14 and 15 and 13-year-olds. I mean, back in my day, and probably your day, kids got picked on. That wasn't a good thing. Maybe you even came to their defense, but kids got picked on. I don't think they went and killed themselves, but if one did, would the kids then have been charged, from calling them Four Eyes or calling them whatever name they would call a kid based on whatever, fat, whatever. How did we get to this place? Is it because of the internet?
It's because of the internet and because of high-profile tragedies, including teen suicides, which is not an insignificant thing. Some experts say there's 5,000 teen suicides a year, that it's the third leading cause of death among teenagers, and there have been spectacular, very high-profile cases which have prompted legislators, including Florida's, which passed this kind of a law in 2008. Yeah. You may remember the MySpace case a few years back, Steve. Mother, who was accused of having complicity, was actually charged in connection with the death of another child who was supposedly being harassed and tormented. The mother was acquitted. Yeah. But believe me, when you're charged with a crime, whether you're acquitted or not, your life is never the same.
And, you know, I hate to get hung up on this repeatedly. We hope to have Mark O'Mara on Monday. He is proposing legislation, or hopes to write it, or help write it, that would hold the parents responsible. And he compared it today to, well, if your kid gets in a car and drives it and kills someone, your parents are responsible. Or if a kid takes your loaded gun and shoots someone. But I don't see the I don't see how that's a good analogy.
I don't see the connection, and that's really taking us to a bad place. People are not supposed to be guilty by association, whether it's association with family. When it comes to criminal laws, I'm not talking about negligence and getting sued for money. When you're talking about crime, you shouldn't have to go to prison unless it's something you did.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, let's quickly go to the aforementioned case in California. California now, they say they're out of legal options. They've been trying to overturn court orders that require the state's prisons, which I guess are overcrowded, to find a way to rid itself of 10,000 inmates, 10,000 more inmates. They've already released many. And the U.S. Supreme Court on Tuesday rejected Jerry Brown's final legal maneuver to end the federal court oversight. And now the state has to follow through with a legislative plan to solve this crisis. And they say they're going to have to release prisoners. I mean, why don't they build more prisons? Hey, I mean, I know that'll take a long time, but what if they said to the court, all right, we're in the process of building more prisons. Could you let them stay for a while longer?
Well, you would think that if I'm assuming that the judges simply felt California wasn't moving fast enough. I don't think it could be said California was ignoring the situation. They had, in fact, moved apparently 30,000 inmates out of state prisons. But from the standpoint of the three federal judges, not good enough. And certainly you would think that before individuals are literally turned loose on the street, that they're going to give them more time, that they're going to explore more options. It's going to end up on the back of the taxpayers. But that's a choice for taxpayers and legislators to make. You can always reduce populations by reducing prison sentences, but is that where the public wants to be? And, you know, one big change that has, over time, Steve, really driven the issue of prison populations, people used to get out after just serving a fraction of their prison time. That's changed now in most places.
Yeah, mandatory sentencing and all that, right?
Yeah, it's serious business. You can't look at getting out 30% of the way through your prison sentence hardly anywhere in the country anymore. And a lot of that was recognition, not only that prisons had become revolving doors, but of the rights of victims. You're victimized by a crime, somebody's sentenced to 10 years. Do you really want to hear about them getting out after 2?
No. And, of course, look what happened in Florida with those 2 getting out by mistake. Kendell, always great to talk to you, sir. Have a great weekend, and hopefully we'll speak next week.
Happy Friday. Talk to you next week.
All right, take care. Kendell Coffey, ladies and gentlemen, Spinning the Law, the author of the book by the same name, which I recommend greatly, even though it's a number of years old by now. When we come back, I'm going to introduce you to a woman who is a remarkable story. She is an award-winning filmmaker, producer, director, star of The Black Tulip, which she went back to her native Afghanistan under threat of the Taliban, stood them up, looked them in the face, stared them down, made this movie. She's a champion of human rights. She just won a big award this past week. We'll talk about that with her as well. She had an amazing experience with President Ronald Reagan, where she wrote a letter to him. He answered her, and it changed her life. And I can't wait to introduce you to her and to hear from Sonia Nasseri-Cole when we come back on the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.